New Zealand wing the changes as Australia look to salvage some pride. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Saturday is a very busy day for Rugby World Cup warm-up games. We've got 5 in total. The first of those is New Zealand versus Australia. It's also the second Bledisloe Cup game. New Zealand have already retained that with their victory last week. So, not much riding on the game in that respect, but obviously a lot riding on it in terms of build up to the Rugby World Cup and just the history between these two teams as well. It's at the Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin. It's on Saturday the 5th of August and kickoff's at 3:35 BST. So very early start for that one if you're going to watch it live. I imagine a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere, you're probably going to either watch a replay or watch highlights. I would say if you want to be informed about where teams are before the Rugby World Cup and you haven't watched the Rugby Championship, I would suggest checking it out because, New Zealand have come into some good form. So let's see if that's going to continue, but we're going to have a look at the two teams, starting with the home team, New Zealand. So front row, they've got Williams, Takiaho, Laulala. Second row is Retallick and Whitelock. Back row is Finau, Kane and Sabea. Halfbacks, Christian McKenzie. Then left wing is Fainuku. Centres, Leonard Brown and Enor. Right wing is Stevenson. Fullback, Jordan. Then on the bench, you've got Coles, Tuingafasa, Newell, Vai, Jacobson, Smith, Mwanga and MacLeod. So from there then, we have the Australian team. So front row for them is Bell, Porecki, Famusili. Second row is Frost and Arnold. Back row, Hooper, McWright, Valentini. Halfbacks, McDermott and Gordon. Left wing is Corumbete. Centres then Karevi and Pataya. Right wing is Nawaka Nisawase. And the fullback is Kellaway. On the bench then they got Ulesi, Slipper, Nonger, Skelton, Leota, White, Cooper and Paresse. So last week then both teams played each other in the Rugby Championship. This one was in Melbourne and it was a bit of a blowout. It was 38-7 and New Zealand looked in control all the way. New Zealand have made a lot of changes for this one. Australia have made some changes, but they've stuck to the core of what you would probably consider a first team for them. So let's have a closer look at the two teams. New Zealand, that front row, Williams, Takiaho and Laulala, definitely not first choice, but we got a couple of players in there who will be knocking on the door for inclusion for the Rugby World Cup. But I feel like some of the players that are getting a run out here, it's going to be like a one and done for them in terms of chances to impress before the Rugby World Cup, because they've got a lot of players to cycle through in the warm games that they have left before deciding on that final 33 to go to the World Cup. Most of those spots will be filled. Same for most of the nations as well. And this front row, say Laulala, definitely going. Williams, I'm not too sure on. Takiaho, is going to be in the conversation, but it's I think there's others ahead of them. And if you looked at the front row that played start last week, they were very, very impressive. Then we got Retallick and Whitelock in the second row. I think both of those are definitely going through to the Rugby World Cup. Got Finau on debut, obviously going to have to really majorly impress there as well to kind of push his way into the thoughts of Foster ahead of the naming of the Rugby World Cup. Sam Cane, captain, returns. Artie Sabea, who was standing captain last week, he's nailed both of those nailed on for the Rugby World Cup. We've got Finlay Christie getting a run out at 9. Probably one who, isn't guaranteed to be on the plane, but certainly can put his hand up. Damien McKenzie, I think, will go just because of his overall utility. Playing at 10, I think he's going to be the one where, New Zealand have this ability more than most of the, we talk about Ireland and France being strong, but when it comes to when you play the kind of the minnows in your pool, New Zealand are the only team who can genuinely change pretty much their entire starting 15 and still get, a pretty handy result. Whereas the likes of France or Ireland will probably make, even like eight or nine changes for that, but they still have to retain a core there. I think Mackenzie is going to be the kind of player for that. He's going to maybe be starting 10 against the minnows, and then maybe, depending on who's getting in and out of the starting 15, he's maybe going to be 23rd man for the bigger games for them, but he will have competition for that spot as well. But I don't see him starting in the Rugby World Cup. Certainly not unless there's injuries or like in the big games. I mean, in other games, as I said, he probably will start as a 10. We then have Leicester, Fuinga, Anuku. So I think he's another one who's got to impress. There's a lot of competition for wing spots. There's a lot of players who are pretty much guaranteed to go to the Rugby World Cup in really good form as well. And he has a few players that are in and around his ability as well that he's got to get over. Like he's going to have to be able to show that he's a better choice than someone like Caleb Clark, I think, to go to the Rugby World Cup. Because I say Caleb Clark is probably going at the moment, and the likes of, of Leicester and Sean Stevenson starting on the right wing as well, they're going to have to prove that they are a better choice. So they've got a lot, going to have to really impress in this game and then get selected for a subsequent game to do that as well. Sean Stevenson on the right wing there, he's on debut. He's one of these players who's got absolutely bags of talent. And I think for almost any other nation in the world, he would have been capped by now. Like, we talk about New Zealand not being the best kind of team in the world at the moment. Now they're coming into form where they're going to challenge that statement, but they've never lost the depth of talent that they have. It's just the cream of that talent hasn't been, up to the absolutely amazing out of this world standards that they set themselves. But I think Stevenson again, he's a very talented player, but probably not going to go to the World Cup unless he has an absolute stormer here and then backs up as well with another good performance. Anton Leonard-Brown, he's one that's kind of on the edge, I think, of going to the Rugby World Cup. Enner is one, I think both of them really, again, have to have good performances to force their way in there. Will Jordan absolutely nailed on. He may not be fullback. You're probably going to see maybe Bowden Barrett there, and Will Jordan maybe playing right wing. But they've got so much talent there with those guys that they can chop and change, and easily both of those could switch around, and you could move, Barrett into 10 if you wanted to, if say Moanga wasn't performing or wherever. So you got plenty of choices there, but Will Jordan definitely going to the World Cup. On the bench then, Dane Coles, I think he's another one that's definitely on the plane. Tuanga Fasi, I think him and Takiaho, they're maybe going to be fighting out for maybe one spot going to the Rugby World Cup. Fletcher Newell, another one who's kind of, is a possible, but has to produce. And a lot of the bench, I think, are the same. Like you got, Tupou, is it Vai or is it Vai? Whichever. He's another one who, kind of in and around the kind of edge of the squad. Jacobson, Aaron Smith definitely going, Richie Moanga definitely going, Dallas MacLeod on debut, another one who's going to have to absolutely light the world up, I think, to get there. Now, let's have a closer look at the Wallabies team. So, for them, you got Angus Bell, Porecki, I think both of those definitely going. I don't know why I struggle with some of these names. Famu Sealy, maybe going Nick Frost and Arnold. I think those two are kind of battling out to find who's going to be the best partner for Skelton, I think there, but I think both of them probably will go on the plane. Tom Hooper, he's getting a lot of game time. He's getting a lot of chances, so I think he's probably going to go. Fraser McWright, with the elder Hooper to come back, he's got to, I think, impress. Rob Valentini, I think, is going to go. Tate McDermott and Carter Gordon, both definitely going to go. Whether they're going to start in the Rugby World Cup is kind of hard to say, because, Australia have this thing where they, a 9 and 10 will have an excellent game, but as soon as they have a bad game, there's calls for them to be dropped, and whoever the other pairing is, in this case, White and Cooper, to be brought in instead of them. So I can imagine the kind of positions, those players jostling and positions changing right up to the World Cup and during the World Cup as well. Marika Korombete, he's definitely going. For me, he is Australia's best back. Karebi and Pataya, I think both of those are going to be in the squad. I think Karebi will probably be a starter. Pataya probably a squad player. Nakanita Wase, I think he's getting better at test level. And I think by the time the Rugby World Cup goes around, he probably will have that right wing nailed down, as a starter. Andrew Kellaway, to me, he looks like the starting fullback for Australia in the Rugby World Cup. Onto the bench then you got Ulysses. I think he's another one that's on the plane. James Slipper definitely on the plane. Nonger, I think he made his debut last week, so he's got a lot to do to force his way into the Rugby World Cup squad. Will Skelton, definitely on the plane to the Rugby World Cup, but again, I say it every time that we look at Australia. Eddie Jones has to find some way to get him to reproduce his La Rochelle form for Australia, because I've seen in flashes of him in a Wallabies jersey, but in green and gold so far, I haven't seen that player play from not necessarily full 80 minutes even, because he's not an 80-minute player, I think, but to give you 60 minutes of that type of form. Rob Leota, I think, is going to go to the Rugby World Cup as well. Nick White and Quade Cooper, they're definitely on the plane. Again, there's going to be the debate about who are the starting halfback pairing. And then Paresse, I don't know too much about. I think another one who's going to have to impress mightily to get onto the plane. So in terms of how I think this game is going to go, both teams have made changes, but I think Australia have stuck more to the core of the team that started last week. So I expect a better performance from them, but it's New Zealand are at home. So I think Australia are going to give them a bit of a scare and a bit of a game. But I think once New Zealand get into a rhythm, some of those players, that are there are going to announce themselves to the test arena and have great games, I think. And I think they have enough talent in there, enough, frontliners in the team that they're going to probably win at a little bit of a canter. Maybe not as easy as last week, but it's not going to be, too much of a sweat for them either in the end. But I hope I'm wrong, because then it means it's going to be a hell of an exciting game, but we'll have to see.